Hello, good afternoon from South Florida. My name is Lyonella Cook, and I am here today to share a finish with you on Finish Friday. Today's finish is Farmcore, which I saw all over around top. It's so good to be back. I'm just absorbing everything I have seen. But before we get started and we talk about anything fun, let's get down to business. Today's Finish Friday code is Finish Friday 328, and it expires on Tuesday, April 1st, April Fools, at 12 p.m. So Finish Friday 328, all products seen today, 20% off, which is awesome. And make sure you like, share, comment, and you can be entered in for a chance to win some free product from today. So, as you guys know, I went to Round Top and it was so amazing. I'm really just kind of absorbing everything I had seen. I can't even begin to tell you guys. It was like being in Finnish heaven. So, there was a really big trend there, and it's called Farmcore. And I know some of you guys are like, well, what's Farmcore? So we'll do this real quick and then we'll get to our finish. Farmcore is like the sister of Farmhouse, but the difference, like Farmhouse is more cleaner, more sleeker, maybe some more black in it. But so it's transitioned to Farmcore, which is more of a vintage feel, nostalgic. You're layering patterns and worn pieces together to create this feel, and it was out of control. These women were crazy for Farmcore. So we're going to talk about that. Today's piece, here is my before, and when we're done, I will show you the after. Just a really basic butler's folding tray reproduction. And then this was the piece I was inspired by. I saw this, if you can see really close. This is an original paint, 19th century, so we're talking 1800s, layered, chippy. It's been battered and abused, but it was a fantastic finish. Check that out. This piece, this tiny little wood piece, was retailing for $800. So, you know, we're going to work with cracked patina today. Cracked patina has the potential to be so many different styles. You can use it so many different ways. But today, we're for this purpose, we're going to use it on a rustic piece to create that the 19th century style. Excuse me, I do have a cold after being around probably 100,000 people. So we are going to use today cracked patina. That's our primary, most important product. We're going to use all the Kensington black glaze. We're going to use auburn mahogany. The colors that we will be using today are Cherbourg. I love this green. It is so phenomenal. And we are going to, the white, I've already taken out of the can, is Dearborn. And we used that in our last project. So really fun colors. We're going to need waxes, white, light wax, dark wax, dust of ages, and we're going to go ahead and get started. And I'm going to show you what we're doing. Today's going to be messy, so we will do our best. I'm going to turn you down so you can see what we're doing. So here we are just starting with some wood, really plain wood, nothing special. So a lot of like old pieces, or, you know, they're just this regular pine. And you're like, oh, how do I paint this? Well, I'm going to show you how to do it today. So first we're going to start, as always, cleaning your piece. And what's neat is you can actually do these on new production, giving it that old charm. So you can also do it on these. So clean slate. We're going to clean that wood off really well before we start. Have any surfactants off. And so we don't want to actually show this color because old wood is never going to look like new pine. So what we're going to do is we're going to start with our auburn glaze. We're going to stain this wood. Really easy. And just going to And the piece I worked with, it was not uniform. It was really gross. So I sanded it off and then I used my gel stain and just really getting it into the grain. Always, you can do a crosshatch, but make sure you go with the grain at the end. All right. And then you're gonna come back with your rag and we're going to just lift off a little bit. So if you want to make a newer piece of wood look old, we're going to use that Kensington black to kind of add some depth to this wood. So nice and easy. Look how pretty that, and that's just a regular old piece of plywood. Now we'll use that Kensington black. There we go. And go ahead, you want to shade the exterior. If there's any existing dents in it, put that Kensington black into it. You just go across a little bit, dry brush it. I'm just kind of shadowing a little bit to make it look maybe like it's older, if you'd like. And so, and then removing that. And now you just kind of added a little bit of interest to your wood. You want to let this dry completely down. And I'm going to skip because I made you guys some. And now you're going to start with your wood. Now, what you are going to do is we're going to add, I always recommend always having a working cup or working dishes. You don't want to contaminate your paints. So I'm going to use the full strength. The more you add water or the more you take away from it, or leave it as is, will vary or crack. So it really just depends on what size crack you'd like. And so I can show you, here, let's just do this real quick. We're going to, and I want you to experiment with this. So maybe for the first pass, go with the grain. And once you do your second layer, we're going to go in the opposite grain. So when you do that, it creates tension on the surface of your wood, and the paint will crack in different ways. So it just depends on if you want a crazed look or if you're just looking for a regular crack. But that's easy. You're going to let this completely dry. It's really important when you do this finish that you let each layer dry for a correct amount of time. Try not to rush it. This is one of those finishes that you just got to walk away and come back to it. If you rush it and use a hair dryer, it will change the effect of the cracked patina. So my recommendation depends on where you are, but here where I am in Florida, you could probably come back in about an hour to 2 hours. And in the summer, it's even hotter. So here is we already have it on there, you can see. And I used it full strength. We're going to take Dearborn. Sorry. And here's my reason for not working in the can. Anytime you lay your brush down on this cracked patina, you're going to pick up a little bit in your brush. And then what do? You put it back in the can. Now you've contaminated your paint source. Now you're going to go try to do a beautiful finish with no crack, and you end up with cracked patina in your finish, and you never intended it. So always have a working cup when using the cracked patina, or make sure you're thoroughly cleaning your brush after if you're really going to work from the can. So here we are, we're going to go across. And because this is a layered look, don't stress. Like, there is holidays. It's not the end of the world. We're going to do 3 layers, which is so much fun. And it's incredibly messy. I'm really sorry. I feel like the best finishes are the messiest ones. So just try not to go back over. I know. But so, and then make sure you clean that brush before you put it back in your can or just set it to the side. Now, as you see, you're going to start seeing cracking immediately. And I know you're going to be so tempted to touch this. Don't do it. Not yet. You really want it to be, see how this side hasn't started either. It's still too wet. But it also depends on how dry that cracked patina is underneath. If you let it dry for a really good amount of time, this will start to dry pretty quick. But see how sticky that is? You want a little bit longer. And I'll let this one dry, but I'm going to show you the next one. So here's one that's already finished. I went ahead and I did that. And I'm going to show you something that I do that's a little bit different, but nonetheless fun. Okay, so when you start to, I want you to think about your piece. Is this a drawer front? Is this the top of something? Where should it be? Because I saw some ugly finishes, y'all. Oh my goodness. Some were like blown my mind, but some were like, really? Why does that look like a spotted cat? So make sure we're consistent. We're going to use our hands. You're just going to lift. And in places you want to follow the oval eye track. So it doesn't have to be a perfect circle, but like maybe this side comes in a little bit more. It's still coming from that side. And so again, we're doing that layered look. So you don't need all of it to come off at once. So again, think about what piece this is. How is it going to be distressed? How is it going to be touched? What are you working on? So let that dry. And now here we are with our next, and I'm going to show you real quick. Have a water source near you so you can clean your hands. I put a paper towel in a bowl if I can't get to the water source, so I always can work with the next layer without contaminating it. So clean that out. Excuse me. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to actually age this already. So we're going to take this glaze, and I'm not going to do the whole thing necessarily. And you're like, well, why didn't you just do gray? Well, because you still want it to be white. So I'm going to just kind of get in some of these crevices that have already cracked. And the reason I'm doing this, when I was looking at these finishes in Round Top, it was layer upon layer of paint. And it wasn't perfect. And, you know, probably back then people, they didn't have clean slate. So they weren't cleaning, you know, before they painted. They just kind of just layered the next paint on. Maybe they wiped it with a rag and then did the next one. So now, and I was thoughtful about where I place this. It's at the edges, on the sides. And so that's your first layer. Now you would let this dry. I'll hit it with the hairdryer real quick. Sorry, guys. It is the hairdryer day. Okay. So we're going to take that cracked patina again. So for this one, I went with the grain. Now I'm going to pull it against the grain. So now we're going to go against the grain here with this cracked patina. And what I'm trying to do too, is if you look at this finish, it was very chunky. There were some paint chunks to it. Back then, their paints were oil, and they were made with lead and arsenic, and they were thick, really thick, chunky paints. And some of them weren't, and some of the, so it's just multiple layers. So we're going to go ahead and let this dry down now. Okay, that's our first layer. And we are going to go to, okay, let's move to this one. This one's done. So I did crack patina again, and I kept moving forward, so I'm gonna have to use a blow dryer, and then pulled off. Now that our second layer of crack patina is dry, we're gonna do another white, and it's gonna be a little bit different kind of white. So you can where is it? I use Dearborn, but this one's Winter Snow. And if you take a look at it, it actually has a little bit of yellow in it. So now that this first original one is a little gray, has gray to it. This one's going to be a little bit yellow, and then we're going to do that green. So, excuse me. Here, mix it up. Put this in my bowl. Again, you don't want to contaminate your paints, so I always use a working bowl. Excuse me. All right. And now and also depending on how thick your paint is, you can thin your paint and make it a little bit less thick, but we're really going for kind of a thick look. So I applied, with this one, I applied against the grain. Now I'm going to go with the grain here. And we're creating this really beautiful, layered, thick look. And when we add that green, it's really neat. Okay. And I don't care if I start messing up this top now, because this is where we're going to start getting that texture. So maybe come back through, agitate it with the brush, and then brush through it again. Force it to crack. Excuse me. So while we let that dry, I'm going to actually talk to you about something. So in the, real quick. All right, so now while that's going, I'm going to talk to you real quick too about this. So in the 1900s, early 1900s, you see a lot of pieces with green and then it's white on top. And what I was seeing while I was at Round Top is I was seeing pieces that were green on top from the 18th, 19th century with white underneath. So it kind of changed. And so the history of paint, I was talking to one of the vendors there, and so they loved green. George Washington apparently loved green. He painted his dining room. He wanted it in an emerald green. And in 1775, in Sweden, they discovered that green paint had arsenic in it. And it was very popular to do children's rooms and recovery invalid rooms, and people were dying because of the green paint. And if you guys study a little bit of history, Napoleon died in a green room, which was kind of wild. So anyway, fun fact about green paint. So a lot of these, and I was so tempted to take my a lead test and arsenic test to test these pieces, but I probably would have been thrown out. But it was just some of these old paints. So now I'm teaching you a way to do this where it's cleaner and healthier and safer. All right. So here we are. We've got 2 layers of different kinds of whites, and they're really going to shine through as we get to that last layer. Last layer we are doing in that Cherbourg green. Okay. So again, with that cracked patina, we're making an Oreo cookie. And cracked patina cannot be on top, guys. You gotta, otherwise your customers or your friends or your family are gonna stick to that piece. Cracked patina must be sealed or it will reactivate. But it's that really pretty. And so here we are. This is our 3rd layer. And I'm gonna hit it again one more time. So before it completely starts to dry, this is where we're gonna, if you're not content with the amount of distressing, I have to stand up for this. We're gonna really start to push it, and I'm gonna pull it. And sometimes I will do one of these, take a blade, and I'm gonna just go along where I really want more wood exposed if I couldn't get it up to that last layer. So just kind of wiggling it out without harming the wood underneath. Remember, we don't want to harm our piece. We're not trying to hit it. But really, yeah, this is still a little too wet. But just pushing it, maybe manipulating it a little bit more, just to kind of see a little bit more wood in certain places. All right. And I'm going to try to get this to dry a little bit more. It's still really wet. I hate hair dryers. Okay, so look at this. Can you see really close? Look at all of those beautiful cracks, right? Isn't that really pretty? Okay, now we're gonna take our green. This is where I do recommend, if you're gonna do a thinner paint, you do it on the top part, because otherwise you're gonna have to lift up really thick green. So I am gonna water it down just a tad. There we go. There's so many different ways to use this paint, guys. It's just really neat. The style, you can make it elevated. You can do a rustic farm core like this. And now we are going here. And you see what's happening? You see that beautiful, we're coming already getting nice like holes and holidays, intentional holidays, not because you missed it. And sometimes I don't follow the rules. I'm a little bit of a rule breaker. So I will come back through. And then we're gonna have to dry again. One more time, guys. Okay. Bear with me. We're almost done. All right, that's good. Here we go. All right, so hands, you're going to pull, and it's not, don't go random. It's got to stay random. And there, see where I intentionally put more paint? Well, that's where I wanted to pull from. So I'm thinking about, but while you're putting this paint on, you're just not haphazardly putting paint on. You're thinking about where exactly do I want the most paint to come off? Now, do you see my hands? You want to get this off. Otherwise, your hand becomes a positive tool and you're just redistributing paint all over your piece. So make sure you're constantly wiping these hands off. Cracked patina is super sticky. So make sure you get it off before you touch your piece again. And so we're going to come back. And this time here, you can take your blade and we can work in where we wanted maybe some more. And cracked patina does not dry completely. Do you see how it's activated the paint almost again all the way at the bottom? So it's really important we seal these pieces correctly. And I'm not just saying one layer. You're going to need to seal with 2 to 3 layers of the matte sealer, because the last thing you want is someone puts their glass on a table or the nightstand, and guess what? You are going to activate that cracked patina. It's going to come off, and you're going to have really one unhappy customer. So once you get to how you feel that this is acceptable, remember we are going for, let's remind you again, we're going for something like this. That's what we're looking for. It depends on how distressed or how much wood you want to come through, and you just kind of keep pulling if there is a place. Now you might be upset because that wood maybe looks too new, but I have a great way to combat that you don't have to worry about, you know, you did stain it, but it's not dark enough. And so we'll do this real quick. So when it completely dries, I want you guys to sand this down, because what I noticed that all the pieces that were finished at Round Top were very soft. You know, they had been worn down over time, wiped down, God knows, probably 100 times. So when you get to these multiple layers, do you see how it's still activated? I would typically let this dry for at least a day and make sure it's completely dried. But then you would take your sandpaper and then bring this all down, wipe it down again with clean slate, and then you'll move to your next next part. So for sake of time, I'm just going to go ahead and keep going, and then I'll show you the finished piece at the end. So we're going to take this black wax. I'm not content with this, and I'm not, you know, I want these crevice cracks to show a little bit more. And you could do that with Dust of Ages, but it's a little bit different from what I was seeing on these higher end pieces. They aren't as grungy. So I'm going to take some brown, and yeah, I'm going to make that white even dingier looking. So just little sections, maybe where the white has been exposed a little bit more. And then you're going to come back, and I'm probably going to lift paint off because it's still not completely dry, but just kind of dabbing it. There. And then for the center, because that's typically where things, and I'm going to show you on my shelf or the tray, I'm going to take an artist brush, and I'm just going to kind of highlight areas with this Kensington black into the crevices. Because think about it, if it was continually wiped, all that dirt would have just kept, it would have been like almost like a gel in there. So I'm kind of just adding some black in, and you're going to take a rag and you're going to come back and just kind of gently just pushing it in. Also, this green is fantastic. It is a Farmcore core color. Excuse me. And that's kind of where we're leaving right now. Excuse me. We're going to take this light antique wax. Oh my gosh. Oh, having a cough attack. Light wax off, and then we're going to go over the piece. Oh my goodness. Like so. Let that come to tack, let that dry. Then you're going to take your dark wax. Excuse me. And we're going to highlight little areas. Sorry. Texas. Everything was blooming. And so I got a sinus infection. Everything in Texas is bigger. Even your allergies. Oh my goodness. Okay, so we're just kind of going over that. Let that come to tack. And then you're going to add dark wax into it. I would let this completely dry, typically. Come to tack, and we're just short on time, so I'm going to keep going. And you're going to go in spots where you want it to really start to look old. There we go. I let Dust of Ages sit on my piece for typically like 8 hours. I really want the dust to become part of that finish. And when it does, it cures into the wax. But you'll come back through with that clean rag, and you're going to hit, dry, hit, drag, hit, drag. just like that. And when you do that, it'll also polish this. So now I'm gonna show you what the finished, that properly weighted times would look like. Let me pull this out for you. And here we go. So I am going to move you up slightly. Can you see that, guys? Do you see right here how I use the glaze to really set into those cracks? I pulled off, and then Dust of Ages was really appropriate in the corners. Do you see that? Also, what I saw on a lot of the rims was multiple layers. It had that red, which I used Chinese red, and then the blue on top. And I'm going to show you the size of this piece, which is really what I love. Check that out. Can you see that? Multiple layers, pulling off. Yep. See, I wanted the corners where it was touched and grabbed. And see the top, allowing some of that white to come through. If that makes sense to you. Yes. So that is cracked patina. And that is, sorry, I had a coughing spell. That's Farmcore. So something like this, layered with like beautiful vintage books, gorgeous roses on top, and then finishing it with something really pretty. So if you guys have any questions, leave any questions, comments down below. I love to read them, and I will catch up on them this week. Thank you so much, and have a happy Friday. So make sure you like, comment, share, and it's finished Friday 328, I believe. Thanks. Bye, guys.